Woo!
Almost on time. I think we're on time.
We're
Here
right
we
on
are.
time.
We're live. Tonight we're going to be heading into Kenny Loggins' danger zone, everybody. Woo!
Are you
I
gonna
am
play your song?
excited.
Are you gonna play your song?
I was going to play it the whole time. That's
Oh,
just for everybody out there. I just want it to be known that Caitlin has not seen Top Gun. So I'm going to start a GoFundMe to get her a DVD of that.
this one's supposed to go where like you play the song, you get really into it, and then we stop it and we start our live.
I mean, I'm into it. All right, everybody, welcome to the Justin and Caitlin Show. It's episode 5.
Welcome.
Breaking the barrier of convention. We are going through Wayne Dyer's Your Erroneous Zones. I am Justin.
I'm Caitlin.
Hey, here we go. This is a really cool week. You may not ever, look at your verbiage the same again. You're probably going to start analyzing a lot of the words you use. We'll get to that towards the end in more depth. But we could start off, Caitlin, you want to hit off.
Yeah.
What does breaking the barrier of convention even mean?
So what Wayne is really talking about here is these policies and these rules that we live by, and these I should do this or I shouldn't do this. These beliefs that we live by that we actually don't really believe in or even subscribe to, yet we keep running our life by them. And so in the end, we end up feeling really anxious, sometimes miserable, very unhappy with our lives because we're living by these sets of rules that we don't actually even believe need to be there or that we don't even really want to follow. So he starts looking at what will this actually look like to remove those and live the type of life that you actually want to live. Yeah. And the importance of having flexibility in that and who controls what in your life.
Yeah, and how important is flexibility right now? I mean, good grief, the times we're all living in, it's heavy, it's a lot, it's been ongoing. We're hitting month 4 of just constant pressures and all this, and man, how much flexibility has been needed within your family, within your relationships, if you're married, dating, you have roommates, whatever, business. Man, how many businesses are trying to just make it and be as flexible as possible with all the rules? I think flexibility is a huge need right now, and I'll be honest, it's hard because a lot of us, we like control, and self included in that statement, and it is a tough go, man. But let's roll. Let's hit this.
Do it.
Internal versus external. I almost set this up as saying locus of control, like the bug locust.
It would have been interesting.
Whatever. We're supporting nature. But yeah, we want to see the difference here. What does it mean if I have an internal locus of control versus external? So, Caitlin, why don't you take us down the road of external, and I'll take us around the neighborhood of internal.
Works for me. So one thing that Wayne did through a lot of studies is he realized that a lot of people live in the external locus. What this means is that someone else or something else is to blame for how you feel or what you're thinking in the present moment. So, for instance, you can go up to a coworker and say, "Hey, why are you unhappy right now? Like, are you okay? What's going on?" And immediately there can be a list of things. Oh, this person cut me off on my way to work. My mom said this morning. I got this email from someone in the city, whatever it might be. And that one comment or those one conversation has thrown you off completely, either the rest of your day or it's completely upturned you emotionally. And that's where Wayne's really coming from. And he's like, hey, not only do a lot of us live by rules that we actually don't even subscribe to, and we actually don't want to live by, but we allow the people around us to have control over how we think and how we act and how we feel. So if you guys follow our social media, yesterday I also posted a post similar to this where it talks about when you give your power to someone else is when they get to decide how you think, how you feel, how you act, and even how your day goes. But your power belongs to you. And there's this sense of peace that comes when you realize that and begin changing this from like the external, which is people are able to completely throw you off course. And it's very chaotic. Things are up and down very quickly versus when it moves more internal, which I know then you'll talk about, and it becomes more centered on you.
Yeah. And internal is definitely tougher. I think a lot of us have that mental image of that man or woman who's like 70 plus years old, and they always say, I don't care what anybody thinks anymore. And my question has always been, why do we wait till we're like 70, 80, whatever years old to do that?
Yeah.
Why don't we do that at 30, 40, 50, whatever your age? Why do we wait? What changes when you hit 70?
Yeah.
And I think the locus of control part about being internal is it turns into a lot of I statements. Whereas I'm going to take responsibility how I feel and how I responded to, let's just take your idea of getting cut off on I-4 or whatever highway, or getting a crappy email. It's like, am I going to let an email that took me, let's say, 2 minutes to read?
Yeah.
Am I going to let 2 minutes of my 24-hour day ruin it? Now, sometimes we do get rough news, like someone passes, or there is obviously news that we all get that sucks, to be honest, at times. Yeah. And so I want you to also know, everybody, that as we're talking today, realize that there are limits to how we're going. And later, combined words there, later, Caitlin will be talking about some morality stuff, and there are honestly some things that are cool and okay to subscribe to. This isn't about, creating some anarchy or just whatever.
No.
I think one thing that I've heard a lot of clients and people and even some friends say is they have this idea, and I'll be honest, this is one of my battles, is everyone's against me. It's kind of this me versus the world. Whether you feel like you're one down from everybody and everybody's coming at you, or you just feel like people are take from you, and then you're hung out to dry. And I think sometimes what's hard is those messages get delivered through experiences we've had when we were younger.
Yep.
And we carry them through into adulthood. And I'll tell you, one of my journeys has been, do I really want to subscribe to this thought process, or can I believe, or at least start to believe, that people actually do like me and would be willing to help or hang out or, whatever. Yeah. And that's been a major thing for me. Like, this book's about taking action. And I'll tell you, over the last 72 hours or so, I have reached out to old friends and kind of really challenged that narrative of like, I haven't talked to them. They're not going to be down to chill and whatever. And I was totally opposite. And I'm like, wow, how many times have I done this in my life where I've created this narrative of, they don't want to hang out with me. They don't like me. They wanted to use me for this, or, whatever story we make. But at some point, I think we get to this place where it's like, is that true?
Yeah.
If I don't ask, is that really accurate? And then what do I do if I find out it's not true? Because then I have to look at a lot of other situations that I threw up that same story. And I'm like, crap, that might have not been true. And it kind of throws us into this next thing, man, the blame game.
This one.
This is a hot topic fire button right now in our country, and we won't get into all that because that'll take us 5 hours to navigate. But within reason here, blaming, a lot of times we're using day-to-day blame here. It really is a neat little tool that we don't even realize we use to not take responsibility for something in our life.
Yep.
It's, well, I'm like this because you didn't do it. Or I got in trouble today because blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
All right, that's wonderful. But if you really stop and think about what it is when we blame others, what we're doing, is I may blame Caitlin for something. She may feel guilty about it. Whatever the deal. She may be like, oh man, I let Justin down or whatever deal. But what has that done for me? I still haven't done anything to address the part that made me unhappy or pissed me off. All I've done is deflected my issue onto Caitlin for her to feel like crap. I go off, and do I really feel better?
No, not at all.
I don't know.
I mean, one big area I noticed for me, which ironically you called me out on, I think a year ago, was it's been a long time.
These people are going to be like, what happened to those parking lot conversations?
Oh, they were long, let me tell you. So it's where blaming actually almost turns into a victim mentality. Where this doesn't even have to be, let's say, a present day conversation between you and me, where you blame me for how you feel when it ends. This could be, hey, this trauma happened to me years ago, or a few months ago, or decades ago. And because of that, I get to act like this. Or because of that, I have legitimate things that you were dealing with. But the difference between realizing, okay, there are legitimate things that you were dealing with from the trauma. You can heal from those. We can work through those. And they are real. And there are definitely repercussions there, yes. The difference is when you become the victim mentality and you use it to excuse any behavior that you want to then do. And where the blaming starts happening on everyone around you. Oh, well, I look like this because of what happened back then. Oh, well, I look like this because of this. Oh, well, I'm really cold and rude towards people because this person said this to me. Oh, I don't interact with these individuals because they remind me of this person, and this person back 5 years ago said this. And it's very easy to then let that blame game play out, where then you have that victim mentality, and then this sort of hatred or this unrest starts growing internally to you, and it just ends up affecting you.
Yeah. Wow. 11 minutes in, you're dropping haymakers here.
Just saying. I mean, you talked to her in the parking lot, so everyone listening right now knows this is going to be something similar.
That's legit though, and I think that's important to understand is, and how much. Let's continue with that a little bit. I think that's a cool point you brought up. Not in the notes. We're running with it. It's hey, wow, I didn't get that addition, but no, seriously. I think about this, right? So let's pretend you're in that victim mentality.
Yep.
You start blaming me for something. How much are you defending your actions though? Like as you start ratcheting up kind of the energy, where you're getting more and more fired up and angry or whatever. It goes back to that whole, we spend a lot of time defending ourselves. Like last week we talked about breaking out of our box. But so many people build up defenses around their box. They're kind of like building up their little military base around their box, and like don't come in and don't try and change me.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to watch people when you start pushing those buttons, how it ratchets up the response. But that shows just how deep that is like a survival thing, and it's there for honest reasons.
Yeah. And it's not downplaying. Yeah. And it's not downplaying the trauma. No. The trauma was real. The pain is real. The horrific things that happened, those are real. But it's not allowing the trauma to now control you in the present and in the future. Because when we allow that to happen, we actually allow whoever the perpetrators were to still have control over us. That is still giving them control over your current life. Even if it seems completely unrelated, having a victim mentality actually lets whoever the original perpetrators were control your present and your future. And a big part of healing from trauma is getting your voice and finding that your voice actually does matter. And you have a right to say something, and you can say something. And so having the blame game and the victim mentality actually stops healing. Like it'll actually impede your healing from different traumas that have happened. And then it stops us from taking accountability in the present sense, which then hurts relationships we're currently trying to have. So it's very multifaceted.
Man, I don't know what was in that shake you were drinking before the show.
Protein.
Man, you're on fire. All right, all right.
Protein shakes do wonders. Okay. Lots of prayer and protein shakes.
Prayer protein shakes. We're like Hulk Hogan from the 80s. All right. All right. So we got right and wrong thinking. This is where we're going to start touching into morality, and, it's not as cut and dry. Why? Because, look, a lot of this right and wrong thinking, we like to really pin ourselves. I'm still getting used to this. Black and white thinking. Forgetting how healthy it is to live in this vast array of grayness. How many people do you know that are a little bit further down the road? They've seen a few roads of life. They're a little older. They don't come to these very hard-nosed conclusions. It's this or it's this. They're like, well, it depends. I mean, you get that from a counselor all the time. Well, it depends. But yeah, Caitlin, I know you want to really hit home the whole morality and convictions and thoughts here before we continue. So why don't you set the stage there before I continue?
Go talk about marriage.
All right.
Nice and easy topic. So this right versus wrong, we're not talking about morality here. We are not talking about religious convictions. We are talking about when little decisions that you make every single day seem to have these consequences that are going to be right or wrong, that are going to be good or bad. And we end up judging them morally when there's not necessarily any judgment that needs to be there. So for instance, on Monday, it had been a morning, good morning, but it had been a morning, and we had fresh cinnamon rolls. Let me tell you, I had some cinnamon rolls. But for those of you who struggle with any sort of iffy relationship with food, or eating disorder behaviors, the first thought that comes in your head is this a good decision or a bad decision? Automatically, is this food good or is this food bad? What if we just view it that the food is different?
Just is.
There's a time and place. Like, it's just is. It's just food. But we attach that morality to things that there's no need to actually attach it to. Because eating a cinnamon roll is not a religious conviction, at least not for me. I mean, it might be for some of you, but not for me. It was wonderful. But the judgment that can be there and thinking, oh my goodness, that was such a bad food. I can't be eating that. Then the shame cycle starts. And then it starts controlling how you're feeling the rest of the day. And then you find yourself either restricting, beating yourself up, or we're working out that night, all because of a cinnamon roll. When if we view it where it's like, oh, food is food. This looks delicious. I know it is not going to cause harm to me to eat it. So I'm going to enjoy a cinnamon roll. And then I'm going to go about my day. Versus the panic and the anxiety and the tension that ensues when we attach a moral judgment to everything. And that's really what we're trying to get with here, with the right versus wrong and good versus bad. And then Justin's going to hit on marriage. So this one's really lighthearted, guys.
Man, I'm kind of lost in the cinnamon bun. I love those.
It's like you're like strawberry ones that you stick in the oven, then you drizzle the icing on top.
Or Cinnabon. Man, we're getting off the track. I don't care, man. You have a couple of those. I mean, you go right back to bed.
I tried. I'd like to keep up the coffee in, so by that point, you're ready to go.
You're committed.
You're committed.
Hey, look, this is something I had to learn recently. I've only been married 4 months and a couple weeks. And so 4.5 months, we'll say. All right, so I'm not some world-class marriage expert here. But probably about a month, 6 weeks ago, I had a situation here. And I'll lay it out to y'all, okay? For those of you who know Andrea, and you know me, this is some of the strange adventures we have. So it was for Mother's Day. So I was like, well, just put the cards, the Mother's Day cards for her mom and my mom. I like just put them in the mailbox. The mail woman comes around 3:45, and she'll come pick it up and take it to the post office. Andrea's like, no, I want to go to the post office, which is only like, I don't know, a mile and a half, 2 miles from the house. It's not far. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Why the heck would you do that? She goes, fine. I'll put yours in the mailbox, and I'll take mine to the post office. I was like, no, why would you do that? And that doesn't make any sense. And, I was like, we're one of the last stops before the mail woman goes back to the post office to end her day. Like, why would you do that? And so this is one of those, marriage arguments that you don't read about in the books, that you read. And thankfully, I have a mentor who helps me, and he called me out and he said, "Look, I'm going to go there." He goes, "But you're being like your dad. Why does she have to do things the way that you want?" Which goes to the whole point of this show is, why do my shoulds have to get imposed on her? And vice versa. This is just one example. But why does my shoulds of it doesn't make any sense to me? But what the heck does that have to do with the fact that she wants to take it to the post office?
Yeah.
It still didn't make sense to me this day. But whatever, it's her decision. Yeah. And it's this whole idea of getting to the point where we allow each other to be different. We understand that I am different from Andrea. She is different from me. We're going to have different perspectives. And allow each other to be yourselves. And I think that's part of the journey. And I think that's a huge part of the journey. Because I think we get so caught in our own family of origin issues that we're not even aware of. Yeah. That we suck our spouse into the same game. And it's like, wait a minute, I didn't even like being in that game growing up. Why would I want to bring her and me back into it? Like, let's go play something else. This game sucks.
Yeah.
And so that's just the thing. It's like, all right, if she wants to put my card in the mailbox and go to the post office, who cares? It doesn't matter. I've heard couples argue about which way to go to a restaurant or which way to go here and there. Does it matter? Do you still get there? At this point, with COVID and the quarantine, take the longer way to the restaurant.
Yeah, might as well.
Stay out of the house a little longer. But yeah, that's my little spot there.
But it's easy to see how you can get sucked into it so easily when things are viewed as right versus wrong.
Yeah.
When that moral judgment's being placed on things that don't necessarily need a moral judgment, that's when it's so easy to get sucked in and get so defensive over your point of view, because it's like, no, I'm right. Like, I'm right on this.
Yeah, exactly.
Understanding it's just a perspective.
And it takes us back to episode 1. What am I trying to prove? I don't know.
That you're loved.
So I told her, I was like, well, if you go to the post office, pick up some stamps so we don't have to go back. Oh, boy.
Hey. Stop by Publix for cinnamon rolls. This is where we're at tonight, guys. Okay.
So let's talk about indecisiveness and how you can get stuck there.
Yeah.
You kind of touched on that earlier.
Easily, especially from trauma. Because decisions that you made before sometimes may not have had the best after effects. Like, you could have chosen to go somewhere and something really bad happened. So through no fault of your own, and it was an innocent decision, like, oh, I'm deciding to go to this grocery store at night instead of my usual afternoon jaunt to the grocery store, and something really bad happens. And so it's natural that indecisiveness does come later, where you begin to question, okay, everything. Is this going to work out well? Is this not going to work out well? Again, then the morality comes in. Is this a good decision or a bad decision? Like, how is this going to affect me in the longer term? Versus realizing it is just a decision and it's okay.
And it's understanding that the fear in there is, I don't want to make a wrong decision again, because we end up going back to a couple of things ago, blaming ourselves for if we're at that grocery store in a parking lot and some jerk jumps out and rapes or mugs you, takes your purse, your wallet, or your car, whatever. We blame ourselves when it was really that guy or woman's decision to stick us up and do whatever. But we have this fear. We blame ourselves for what happened. And then I want to do everything perfect, because if I get this wrong, something heinous may happen again. And I don't want that ever again to happen. Yeah. And I think what happens is we get sucked into this becoming very indecisive over things, whether it's small or big decision. And where that's a struggle is what I've noticed many people do is if let's say I was in that position, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I'll call you up and be like, hey, Caitlin, I was looking at car A and car B. What do you think? And you're like, oh, dude, you got to go with car B. That's the jam. And I'm like, oh, okay. Let's say I buy car B. A couple months later, it ends up being a lemon. Wow, well, that's Caitlin's fault. She gave me stupid advice and made me buy car B.
Yep.
And you see how this whole blaming, the indecisiveness, and all this stuff layers on top of itself. But we
All
look
comes
for
together.
others to give us that advice because we're afraid to do it ourselves. And if it's wrong advice, I can blame, in this scenario, Caitlin, but,
Yeah.
Whoever, the situation. And it's like, wow, how many of us do that? We're looking for someone else to blame.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, if you want to touch on the last part on health in this area.
I have an example for this too, but yes.
All right, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say it's those moments when you're a little kid and someone asks you to come over to their house and you really don't like that individual and you don't want to go. You just blame it on your parents. Hey, my mom said I can't come tonight. I'm so sorry. Got homework to do. Parents said I can't come. Sorry. But the minute you move out of the house and those parents aren't there to say why you can't go anymore, it's that moment where you actually have to either be honest or you go.
Are you blaming on grad school?
Yeah, no, grad school, sorry. Because we definitely never did that. Never did that. Never did grad school.
I can't say that.
Oh, no, I did it plenty of times. So it's that moment where you almost put yourself back in that child role and allow the other person to play that parent role and decide for you what you should do and where you should go. And that way, yeah, you can turn around and tell them, oh, see, this was your fault. This is why this happened. You just made a bad decision. Versus taking accountability, which apparently accountability is a big word tonight. Taking accountability for your own life and the choices that you want to make and having a voice for what your opinions are and for what you want to do with your time. Because our time is not limitless. We have limited time. And so being able to realize that your voice actually has value. It is okay to speak up and say, I am too tired to go to this. Give no other explanation. Be like, I can't make it.
Yep. No is a complete sentence.
Yeah. But it is so hard to do that sometimes, especially when you are seeking for those other people's approval. And so you allow them to decide for you whether or not you should go, what you should wear, how you should act, everything, or let them make the decision for you. Okay, are we going to go to this place tonight? Are we going to go do this tonight? Versus saying that you're exhausted and just want to stay home.
Right. And how you respond to your decisions, right, wrong, and different, is really a good key to your internal world and maybe how far along you are in this journey.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we made a decision that it didn't work out the best, wasn't horrific, but we're like, all right, it's not the end of the world. I'm not going to beat myself up all day today. I learned something. I'll move forward. Or, all right, what can I learn here? And watching how people engage these decision trees, again, whether it worked out to be a home run or a single or you struck out, did you learn? Did it mess up your whole day when you decided to splurge and buy like an extra package of cinnamon buns? I guess we're going there today.
Hey, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, but I'm saying like how you respond to after the decision is made is more of a barometer of really where you're at versus sometimes the actual decision. Because we're not all going to nail it. We're all going to screw up. And we're definitely going over 30 minutes this week, so it is what it is. I don't care.
There's no should here that we have to stay under 30 minutes. So
that's
we're breaking all conventions. Look at that.
I like that.
But my question would be, with indecisiveness. So if you do struggle with this and there is an intense fear of making a wrong decision, do you believe it's okay to fall? So like with little children, when they're learning how to walk, we know that they're going to fall at some point and they're going to skin their knee. But we don't view it as the world ended. We help them get up. We tell them it's going to be okay. We still love them. They're going to learn how to walk still. It's okay. And we bandage the knee. And when they say it hurts, we're like, hey, I know, I'm so sorry. It's going to feel better. Let me put a Band-Aid on it. What can we do? But when we fall, it's like the world has ended. Or we start to question, can we ever recover from this? Versus realizing making a decision and something just not working out from that decision doesn't mean we are now a failure. It just means we took a risk. We made a decision. Hey, turned out differently than what we thought. We're going to learn from that because we want a different type of follow through with this, or we want a different type of consequence. And so the big question there is it okay to fall? And if you say no, then that would really be something I would start exploring as to why is it not okay for you to fall and skin your knee? What is the fear there of what will happen if you do fall? Because usually that goes pretty deep.
Yeah. I've been waiting all night for this one.
You would use that one word.
Woo! So Albert Ellis coined the little term here, masturbation. Read it carefully, everybody. We're not talking about masturbation.
That is next week.
Really? I was like, what?
Next week.
I was like, what the heck book are you reading?
Show up.
Put down the Cosmo. No, I'm kidding.
Let's go and read it.
But here's the deal. This is where I tell early when I started this whole deal, or we started this. I said, it's going to mess up your verbiage and how you start thinking about what you're saying. Because when I, as a counselor, and I'm going to assume, Caitlin, you correct me if I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. When I hear things like I should, I have to, I must, I ought to, what am I missing?
Have to.
I think I said that. No. But yeah, these are all stuck words. These are all words that put a lot of pressure, and it raises an immediate question of why. And he uses the word masturbation because it's why do you feel like you must do X, Y, Z? Why must you do? Think about a quick word shift when you say, I could do that, or I want to do that.
Yeah.
I want to help Caitlin do some landscaping versus I must or I have to help Caitlin land. Like, those have two very different meanings. Mm-hmm. Those are words that I would tell you if you're a person. Well, everybody's a person. But I would tell you that key up on those. Listen to yourself as you talk to other people, whether it's at work, online, doing virtual, your family. How many times do you say, I always do this? You should be doing this. You must do that. You have to. You ought to. You know, and one of the benefits to kind of living in this kind of must is we go back to episode 1. We get approval because you're conforming. Woo! You get your little medal, your little trophy. Hey, I'm number 1 of conforming. Well, I got news for you. Innovation happens when people walk against the grain. Again, we're not advocating anarchy and mayhem and disorder, and that's where people tend to want to flow. That's black and white thinking. We've already covered that. But stay in the gray area. It's okay for you once in a while to walk across the grain. That's how change happens. That's what our country needs now. Walk across the grain. It doesn't have to be what it's been. Mm-hmm. It's okay to change, and you're likely going to get fingers pointed at you. You're likely to get people talking a bunch of junk. I know I've been through that, a lot of times. And it sucks. It hurts. It's not easy. But, man, that's how change happens for yourself and society or even your family system. And I know I ran with that. You want to add anything to that?
No, it was just one quote Wayne kind of writes during this whole segment. And he's like, you can decide to be the person you want to be or the one others want you to be. It's up to you.
Let's end on that.
Yep. That was when I read that in the chapter. I was like, okay, then.
All right.
That sums it up.
Next week, we will pick up and we're going to skip a chapter actually, but we're going to end up on putting an end to procrastination now. So if you struggle with procrastination, join us next Wednesday at 7:30. I don't know what song I'll pick to start that one.
You didn't even play the song this time.
I played it in the beginning. It didn't. Highway of the Danger Zone. Oh, I heard it in my headset.
It wasn't here.
Man, that's embarrassing now that I didn't know that.
That's why I kept asking why you were just talking about Top Gun and not playing the song.
Oh, well, that solves that mystery.
So I guess when you put your headphones on, it takes away the sound from here.
Got it. All right, well, you live and learn. See, I'm not going to beat myself up over that choice because I enjoyed the 5 seconds of Highway of the Danger Zone. See you, everybody.